and you have your testimonies, and that's the thing. It's like your testimonies are not meant to be shared. Not all testimonies are meant to be shared and shared with everyone,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
your testimony could be shared with some people and it just comes off as, oh, that's just a coincidence. That's just,
Yeah.
yeah, that happens. So I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no. You know what it really meant to you, and sometimes what God spoke to you isn't going to be, you know, evident
Mm-hmm.
to somebody else
Yeah.
in ways and stuff,
Yeah.
unless they see it too, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So that, I think that would be another thing that I would say too. It's just like, you know, God is going to communicate with you in ways that is going to be tailor made for
Yeah.
you.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
so not every way that God speaks to you is going to be something that's exciting and amazing to somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. And that's not them like just down, but it wasn't for them, it was for
Mm-hmm.
you,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And you know it's for them too if that testimony is like, oh man, I'm going through something like that, or I you know, that helps me, you know, with this. But if
Yeah.
they're just like, you know, oh, that's cool,
Yeah.
then it just wasn't meant for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, it's just like being aware that a relationship with God is a relationship with God, and a relationship with anybody doesn't look the same.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. That's what I was, when you said that, that's what I was thinking. Because I think a lot of times um, we have our own experiences with God. And I feel like a lot of times when your experience is different, I'm not saying different is a way that goes against the Bible,
Mhm.
um, maybe your relationship is different. I think a lot of times people want to shut down, you're not saved,
Mm-hmm.
or you have to do this, you got to live like this, and I feel like, I just feel like we need to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Mm,
We need to
yeah,
stop doing that. I think it does a lot of harm
it
Yeah.
a lot
does.
of times, because if Alexa don't stop, if what's going on with my computer? I don't know. I just feel like everybody has different convictions,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and a conviction for me might not be a conviction for you, because we're all affected different. My
Yeah.
sin might not be your sin
Yeah.
because of
Mhm.
conviction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I just feel like
right. Yeah,
as the body, like we need to stop.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. It's like the judgment needs to stop. The, um, you know, it's just like, even I, I don't even like sometimes how I hear when someone says, "Oh, you need to pray right." You know,
Mm-hmm.
are you praying right? Are
Right.
you, you know? I mean, there's books, there's things out there saying like, okay, this is a whole prayer like program,
Mm.
that this is how you're going to keep. And it's just like, wait a minute, but
Yeah.
isn't that meaning that there's another strategy to get what you want from God, or for God to actually do what it is that you're hoping for? And if you don't, you've been doing it wrong by asking or talking to God
Yeah,
this way. And like, the way I just look at it, it's just like surrender,
Yeah.
surrender,
yeah,
surrender.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, and that's that, because not everybody's going to afford the same programs and books
Yeah.
and get the same education on communication with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's where, to me, it's just kind of like, man, just trying to make someone conform to the way that you
mhm,
worship, the way
mhm,
Right.
that you pray, the way that, that's an issue, you
Yeah.
know.
yeah,
And that's where I think, where a lot, there's people that don't feel comfortable in church, or don't, because they're just not, this is just not the way
Right.
they
people make it too complicated sometimes. Like I had a man at work. He told me, he was like, if you don't use scripture and prayer, then God can't hear you. And I'm like, and I looked at him and I was like, I was pretty sure Jesus said, "Ask in my name, and if it's in God, if it's in the Father's will, he will do it."
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I don't think it's that complicated.
Yeah.
You know,
It
so,
isn't.
Yeah.
And it's not that like predicated on if you're not in a church or a member of a church, then God is not gonna speak with you, or you're not able to have a relationship with God. And that's where, you know, that's kind of one of those things for me that I was like always feeling just like, look, there's certain places I'm not the most like certain vibes that I'm into, and it's just I can't even place it in music. It's just like, oh, you place me in a funk soul concert thing, I'm gonna be all in. If you place me in a bluegrass full concert, I'm not gonna get up and just
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I don't like being guilt tripped into going to a church and I'm not dancing, or I'm not crying, or I'm not
right,
a certain way that everybody is to this song or to this, what's going on. Maybe I am, more reserved when I'm in church, and don't guilt trip me saying, well, if you were at a basketball game, you would be like,
oh, I know.
That's because it's a game. It's the stakes. It's the, that don't compare a football or basketball game to my excitement for the Lord and make me feel because I'm not going, whoa, at church, that I'm not honoring and respecting God as much as I do Nikola Jokic.
Right.
Like, don't that kind of stuff. It's that kind of stuff, and just where I'm like, okay, I appreciate being at a church, when I go to a church and everything, but there are some things that I'm not into. I'm not wired to. And I don't think it's okay. Here's one example. I talked to my mom about this before. This is me. When I'm at church, I do not like the turn to your neighbor.
Oh, man.
Neighbor.
Oh, man.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm like, leave me alone.
Really uncomfortable.
Like I don't, so anytime that's done over and over and over, I'm just like, neighbor. Now you're starting to make me feel guilty because I'm having to look to someone I don't want to talk to. I don't want to give off no energy. This is making me feel conflicted. Why can't I just come here and listen and be present in God's presence?
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? So, but that's just me. And I know another friend of mine that I've gone to church with several times out here, that I'm just like, the one thing I'm not into is that say to your neighbor thing. It's just like, really? I like that. That just makes me feel like, I'm not just alone there sitting there. I'm just like, yeah, so that's just how she is.
All right.
I just knew after a while, okay, it's not wrong of me that I don't like doing that.
Right.
It's not wrong of me that maybe it's like I am in tune with praise and worship, and listen, I'm thinking about God, whatever, but the style of music is not the style of music that makes me dance. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's so I shouldn't feel guilty of that, because it's not just it's not it being secular or whatever. It's sometimes it's the rhythms, the grooves or whatever and stuff like that. Like when I was growing up, they'd be singing like I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. I'm just like, this doesn't make me just like in the army. I'm like, no. I'm just
right.
now, if they would have done a rendition of like Notorious B.I.G. and they would have been like, he loves it when they call him Big Papa. Throw your hands in the air if you's a true prayer. I would be in it like
right. Yeah, all the young folks. Right.
We're saying it. I'm like, we're talking about the Big Papa, and we're talking about being a prayer. Yeah. I would have been, if I would have heard that synth, that dude, I'd be like, don't get mad at me that I'm not dancing and
Yeah.
shouting to these songs that don't make me move.
Right. I agree.
Well, I think that's the main thing. It's just like I know none of us see anything wrong with church. You know what I'm saying? I just think that sometimes at church services you could feel pressured, or guilt tripped into joining a collective thing that's happening.
Right.
And it's just like, what's wrong with me standing up? What's wrong with me even if I don't stand up and I'm sitting here praying?
Yeah.
I'm talking to God
Yeah.
about my issues, and I'm ready to hear the message. I like being in the environment, but I'm sorry that I'm not like, I'm more of an introvert.
Right.
So I understand, like, even with my wife, like she grew up Catholic, and she's been to different types of churches, but she feels a little more comfortable in a Catholic church service because she was like, man, I feel like Catholic church service is like for introverts like me. I go, I ain't gotta talk to nobody. Nobody's coming up to me like, all right, hey, where are you from? You gonna stay after this? You've got this program and blah 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 and whatever. And it's just like she's very shy and an introvert, and she feels awkward talking to strangers and people. And so when she wants to go and spend some time with the Lord by being at a church service, that's what she's going to do. So the fact that being in a Catholic church service, they're not hooping and hollering, or they're singing some hymns and stuff, but a lot of people just standing there doing their thing, whatnot.
Stand up,
Is
sit
that
down.
wrong?
Stand up, sit down.
Right. Right.
Different.
And it's shorter, and it's just like that's what it is. And so I don't look at I think that anyone in the church body, especially when you have new visitors and guests, it's like, I know everyone wants to make them feel at home, but it's just, you can do that by, someone's going to feel at home by being able to be themselves. And I don't mean that by like, oh, if they love to cuss and all that stuff, they could come and just cuss it. No, it's just like, but if they're just, more reserved, for certain things and whatnot, like, that's okay. You know what I'm saying?
I guess I have like mixed feelings about that. But I think part of the problem with church is so big. Like, the churches are so big, it's lost like its intimacy within the members, right? And I feel like church should be about community. And I feel like within the community, you should develop relationships, and that's how you get that discipleship. Right. And I feel like that's what's missing in the discipleship. But through discipleship, true discipleship, you have to have that transparency, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part of the problem with a lot of churches is people don't want to be transparent with what they're going through. They, because I feel like, if I have an issue, I should just be able to tell you, this is what I'm going through. I need some prayer. I need somebody to be with me. I need some resources. I need some help. Right.
Right.
And I feel like, I guess it just depends. Like, why are we going to church? Like, and it seems like people are going for different reasons.
Absolutely.
And church is so much different than it was like in the Gospels, right? It was smaller, like they weren't meeting like one time. It was a community, they ate together, they prayed together. It wasn't one person, preaching, it was a collective thing where everyone felt useful, everyone felt like they were meaningful.
It wasn't necessarily organized.
Yeah,
Like organized religion.
exactly. Exactly. It was like really a way of life where we're now I kind of see it's just like I go here one day a week and I may or may not apply these teachings to my life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's just different. I don't
It's a,
know.
Go ahead.
oh no, I was just saying it's like a lot of times more about tradition than
That's it.
yeah.
Tradition. Yeah. Because you even think about it, like why do we say we are brothers and sisters in Christ? Like, we don't act like that with our brothers and our sisters. Naturally, like you can be yourself, and you know you love one another, and you're not gonna judge one another. I think it comes back to we go to church religiously, and it's I don't want to say it's for the wrong reason, but I just think that love ain't how it's supposed to be. How it was back then.
Right.
It is. It's true. And I think another aspect, which I mean, it's in the Bible too, where, some of those early, gatherings and churches and communities had drama, going on. You even have like, hey, y'all stop fighting about this. Y'all need to get along. And I think that's kind of what makes it tough. Where a lot of people have a lot of what they call church hurt. And whatnot, because I mean, we're dealing with human beings.
Yeah.
We're dealing with human beings. We're all sinners. We're not perfect, whatnot.
Yeah.
But one of the worst, all sins are bad, but it's just like one of the worst that really breaks trust and transparency is gossip.
Absolutely.
So the thing is, it's like you can be a lot of times people have been transparent about certain things, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, a whole bunch of people know about this. And some of the people I've known, like, that are church goers, devout church goers, are the biggest gossipers on earth. And so
lack of love.
So that's where it just kind of, it's like, I think I agree. There's a lot of people that go to church for the wrong reasons. And there's definitely plenty that go for the right reasons. And it's like, I know when I've gone to church several times this year, it was like I was able to go from a different perspective, and intention and whatever than when I was younger, where it's just like, okay, just God guide me with who I'm supposed to meet, what I'm supposed to hear, just give me confirmation. You know what I mean? And that's where I've gone to some church services where sometimes where it's just like I didn't necessarily really meet anybody, like just went with a friend, but that message was like what I needed to hear. While there's been times where hearing the message, but then there's somebody that I met that ended up connecting with, and then ended up having some really good conversations with, and maybe that person became a friend, or that person was just someone through a short season of maybe a couple months that I had some good conversations with, got even some encouragement from, with certain things I was maybe dealing with and whatnot.
I would say that's the real church.
I
would say that's the real church.
Right. Exactly. So I look at it like, it's really important of what is carried out when the service, the ceremony ends. And what the relationships really are with others. And I had, because of relationships, friendships, colleagues and stuff that I've had in all kinds of sections, whether it was music or through mutual friends or through the church or whatever it was, I had learned that it's like when you rely on anything other than God, no matter what, people are going to disappoint you.
Absolutely.
And that's just the main thing. People are people.
Yeah.
They're going to disappoint you. So I think what happens sometimes within the church communities is some people become so dependent on the community.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're more dependent on the community than God, then in some way you will be disappointed. In some way you will be hurt or in what way. So I think it's just like I remember there was one sermon I saw from Torrey Roberts, and he was just talking about how, you know, when he was starting his ministry, he didn't have much support because what he was doing was different from everybody else. And he's saying sometimes you can go through that where you feel like you're not getting support and you feel like, man, can I just get some support? And he was like, no, most people don't have the faith to support something they haven't seen or that, you know, they don't understand and whatnot. And it's like, and the thing is, sometimes God will remove support from you so that your dependence is only on him.
That's good.
Only on him, because if you ever base it on other people or anything aside from God, that means that man can remove what your purpose and your destiny for that God has you to do, you know, because you're relying on something else outside of him, even if it's related and connected to him.
Absolutely.
Like, nah, you just got to go straight to the source.
Yeah.
And so when I look at, you know, stories of people like Moses did not have a church or a community to go to for what, 40 years?
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same thing with Abraham and Sarah. They had to leave everything. And it's like, wait a minute, where are we going?
So even John the Baptist.
Yeah.
Like, you know, everyone was, you know, in synagogue school and, you know, learning this way and that way. He was in the wilderness, definitely doing something different, doing something new.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I look at it, it's just like, I feel like the community, it goes back to everything else that, you know, seek first the kingdom.
Yes.
And then all the other stuff will be provided. So you seek the kingdom first, the community is provided. The community, though, may just be 2 people. It may just be one other person. It may be 5, 10 people. It may be a church congregational community, but going back to the relationship with God, it looks different for everybody. And he has that custom made path and what is going to work best for every person. So that's why I kind of look at is just like when I go to church, sometimes I'm not expecting, I don't have this thing. I'm looking for a church that I will be going to for the rest of my life or for years and whatnot. There's a church I went to, that the church I recently went to this year, I went to for about 3 months. And how it happened, I knew God was leading me because I was like, God, I'm dealing with some things right now, and I think I do need to, you know, go to a church for a little bit. I'm feeling really kind of isolated, lonely in some ways. Please guide me and direct me in that way. And I went with a friend to, it was like a BET movie premiere thing. I go there, and then at the end of it, people are walking out of the theater, people that starred in it, and I see this dude from Colorado Springs that I know is a stuntman, you know, for a lot of movies and stuff. I know who he is, but I never met him. It's like we know all the same people, but we don't really know each other. So I was like, actually saying, I was like, yo, is your name? You know, I said his name. He was like, yeah. I was like, and you're from the Colorado Springs, right? He was like, yeah. He was like, were you in this movie? I'm like, no, I know you from Colorado, but we never met. We know the same people. And I was just like, do you know you remember my best friend Will, the short one that I did? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I'm his dance partner. He was like, okay, I've seen you before, but we never met. We get each other's contact, and for some reason, I was just feeling in my spirit like, ask him if he goes to a church. Ask him if he goes to church. We follow each other on Instagram, and I see on his Instagram he's married, and I see his wife has like a Jesus shirt on and one photo and some different things. And I'm just saying, I'm like, okay, they're believers. So I text him. I'm like, hey man, do you know a church that I could maybe go to that maybe you go to or whatever? And he told me the church, and he was like, you'll like it. I was like, cool. I went to the church that week. And the whole time I was going, the minister was doing a series that I needed to hear. And they had a men's group thing, an event that happened one weekend. I went to that. I went to all this stuff. And this whole time I went to the church, I did not see the guy from Colorado Springs once. Because he was filming in New Mexico. The whole time he was just out like doing work and stuff like that. But I went to the church by myself, and then I met people, had great conversation, all kinds of stuff, and I haven't been there since March.
It's what you needed at that time. It's exactly what you needed.
And there were so many things that happened too that gave me confirmation. In fact, the last time I was there, there is a worship song from Elevation Church from North Carolina. If you know Steve Furtick, one of their songs called "Trust in God." That is like my favorite worship song. Like I was playing that song a lot last year, and going through some stuff. So I was always playing that song, and I had been to this church already for a few months. And the praise and worship songs, they would sing all kinds of songs I ain't never heard of, but there were some good songs over here. And I'm like, yeah, these are good songs, whatever. But in the back of my mind, I feel like, man, that would be crazy if they were able to sing this song from Elevation Church. But I'm like, they probably don't even know of that song or whatever. And I kid you not, after about 3 months of going to this church, I started hearing the chords, the piano start playing, and I was like, yo, they're about to play my song. And then the praise and worship leader just kind of gave like a little testimony real quick before starting to sing it. And what was so interesting, I could tell the congregation had not heard this song before. I could tell that they didn't sing this song before. And I'm sitting there singing every lyric along I know this song. This is the one song I actually know, Wow. And the pastor was like, I could tell he heard the song for the first time. He was like, I feel like this song was for somebody today. Somebody here needed to hear this song today. I'm like,
wow, God is mad.
And then he called people up to the altar. I go up to the altar. He prays over me, prays over all these people. Now, what was different this time was out of all the praise and worships I've been to, that they had, they do the praise and worship, they do the offering, and then they do the message. That's it. This time, they do the praise and worship, and all of a sudden, he goes up to start doing his sermon, but he has them keep playing the music. And they keep playing the song. And then he invites the choir back up to keep singing.
Wow.
And service went like 45 minutes or an hour longer than usual, playing that song the entire time.
Man.
So he's praying over people while singing that. They're singing that song. They played that song the whole rest of the service.
Wow.
And I'm just like, and one of the friends I made there, I was just like, yo, dude, when he said that this song is for somebody today, dude, this is my song I always play. He was like, oh, you know this song? This is my first time hearing it. I'm like, yeah, remember that church, Steve Furtick I told you about? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, this is from their church. And he was like, what? I'm like, yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll text it to you. But they were still playing this song by the time I left. That never happened before. And I texted over my friend. I'm like, here's the song. He was like, man, I listened to it 3 times already. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. So that was just confirmation for me. And I could tell that story to some other people, and they would just think, oh, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
I'm like, nah.
I'm amazed, bro.
Like,
wow.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. And then after that, the week after, me and my wife shared the car. She had to use the car for the next several Sundays because she had rehearsals to go to and everything. So I hadn't been there in person, but I was still going online, checking and everything like that. And so that just going to show that it's like, yo, I went to this church for this time. And just what it did for me during this time, it's like, I know I can always go back there if I needed to. I haven't been there in months, but I went to another church with a friend of mine who was getting baptized. She was like, I want to get baptized. I'm like, I'm going to be there for you and support you. And when we went to that church, I'm like, I've been here before. It was like 5-6 years ago, but I only been here once with a friend. Just all that. It's like, okay, the way God's leading me, I go to certain communities. I make some friends that, maybe I talk to for a few months.
Yeah.
Maybe one time.
Yeah.
And maybe that person becomes a lifelong friend and whatnot, and just different seasons of friendships. I'm sure y'all have friends that maybe you lost contact with for like years, and then all of a sudden you get back in contact and it's like no time ever left, and y'all are talking even more frequently than you ever had before.
Yeah.
And it was just that gap of time and whatnot, and it's just like, you just never know, like the different seasons and whatnot. Like, just God is awesome.
Yeah. I agree.
So yeah, I don't know, that I'm just rambling, but
no, that's good. That's good.
Got testimonies at the wazoo, and I just always love hearing others' testimonies and just building with other people.
Yeah.
Other believers, and not all believers are going to have are going to agree with every single thing.
Absolutely.
But the foundation at the end of the day, when that foundation is there, that pure foundation, then there's fellowship already there without even talking.
Right.
It's already there.
It's only one gospel.
One gospel.
Right. And so, yeah, man, it's definitely been interesting how, like I said, I grew up in church. I grew up, with God surrounded, but I didn't really truly like find God and establish my relationship with God until I was 30, and it didn't happen